So I want to introduce Angela Kaufman, who's going to talk to us this morning. She's a pro. She has a great tutoring practice that focuses on SAT and ACT, and is also really good with students who have testing anxiety and have learning differences and accommodations in testing. So I'm going to just turn it over to you, Angela, and let you get started.
Thank you. That was so nice. A pro, I don't know. I'm always learning, always researching. But yes, thank you. That was very sweet. So I have been in the test prep world for about 7 years now. I actually used to be a teacher in Montgomery County, and I taught for 10 years. And then I started tutoring when I had kids, and I just kind of fell into the tutoring world. I started with academic tutoring, and most of my students were heading into test prep and looking for ACT and SAT and the college preparation piece. And so I had started my own business, and I had that for a few years, and then I partnered with Private Prep, who actually the founder went to Walter Johnson in Bethesda and started Private Prep in New York at the same time I had started my business here, and so we partnered together 7 years ago. So I've been doing this, like I said, for about 7 years, and it's grown exponentially, and I've learned a lot over the years and through the process itself. And we do work with a lot of students who have accommodations, who have testing anxiety, and the reason we do that is because a lot of our students have accommodations. When I do consultations with our students, I meet for about an hour and a half with every student before I place them with a tutor. And I talk to them and I hear a lot, oh, I'm really bad at math, or I can't take a test, like I study so hard, and then I go take a test and I don't know what happened, and I second guess myself. So we actually partnered with a sports psychologist in the area, and he has a company in Bethesda actually, and he works with a lot of professional college, high school athletes in the area. And we were discussing the similarities between our students and his athletes, and came up with a program to help with sort of that anxiety that students go through. So that's a big part of our process. It's called our Performance Prep Program, and actually Brian spoke here last year. I don't know if some of your students would have seen it. It was for the upper grades.
Yeah, actually I think it was the entire upper school.
Yeah, the entire upper school, and it was fantastic. It was great. So hopefully if your students saw it, then they enjoyed it as well. But it is a big part of our program, the Performance Prep, and we talk on mindfulness, mental preparation. We do breathing techniques, chair yoga. All of our tutors are trained in that area as well. So it's a big piece. It's not in isolation. We integrate it within our sessions with our students as much or as little as they need it. Some students don't need it as much, so we don't force it on them. It's very natural and organic with them. So I was going to go through, and please, anybody stop me at any time if there's anything that you want me to go and speak about. So the SAT versus the ACT. Are all of your students 9th, 10th, 11th? Okay.
I think it's mostly 10th, is that right?
Mostly 10th? Yeah. Okay, great. So SAT versus ACT. It's a little different than when I took the SAT. I took a Kaplan course at White Flint Mall. My mom was my college counselor. I went to college, right? I took the SAT once. None of my friends took the ACT. It was like, whatever. So it does not matter which test students take, and I get that all the time. Oh my gosh, they want to go to X, Y, and Z school, they should take the SAT. Not necessarily. Every school accepts either test, so it does not matter. So I'm just going to go through the similarities and the differences between both tests. This is sort of just the things I'll go through. All right, so the SAT versus the ACT. How many of you know a lot about the ACT? SAT? No? Okay, well that's good. All right, so I'll go through the ACT and then I'll go through the SAT. And I go through this with our students too during the consultation, so this is just sort of a snapshot of what they look like. So the SAT is a pretty straightforward test. Little background, the SAT came out 2 years ago in March. They redesigned it. More students were actually taking the ACT over the SAT, so the SAT said, whoop, we gotta revamp this. And so they did. The College Board made it look a little bit different. There are still some things that are the same as the older SAT, but a lot of it is pretty different. It's based on the Common Core. There are a lot of critical thinking type questions, a lot of problem solving. Students really have to sort of think about the questions while they're taking the test. The ACT is more straightforward. The ACT is all multiple choice. It's out of 36. Each section is worth 36 points. You add them together, average them out to get your composite score of 36. So the ACT always goes in the same order: English, then math, then reading, and then science, and then your optional essay. So each section, like I said, is worth 36 points. Average them together, get your composite score of 36. If you don't know something or you run out of time, you can guess, because there's no penalty for wrong answers, and you might get something right. Going through the sections, the grammar section is basically your grammar section is basically your English grammar. Things that students probably haven't seen since elementary school. We do call that the low-hanging fruit, meaning it's the easiest to bring up. So once we reintroduce students to those grammar rules, it comes up pretty quickly. The essay is optional. Most schools don't even look at it, but some students take it, some students don't. It really just depends. The math section does go up to Algebra 2. It's more visual, so it has a lot more geometry on it than the SAT. The ACT is, if you just remember, it's more clear-cut, it's more black and white, it's more straightforward. It's all multiple choice, it's visual. So for students who have those strengths, the ACT might be a better test for them. On the flip side, the ACT with standard time has more questions, less time. So some students run out of time. With extended time, and there's obviously multiple types of accommodations, then the ACT, the timing becomes a non-issue for that. So math, and then it's all multiple choice, and you can use a calculator for everything on the math section. The reading section basically is reading comprehension and testing your vocabulary, but you can use the context clues to help you solve those, the definitions of the vocabulary words. So you can use the sentences before and after to figure out the meaning of the word that they're asking you. The science section is a science section, and some students come in and say to me, I hate science, I don't want to take the ACT, or I love science, I want to take the ACT. Although it is a science passage, and based on science passages, it's mostly graduate level science passages some adults don't even understand. They're really just testing your comprehension, how you can answer the questions based on the passage, and how you interpret graphs and data. So with strategies, we help them out on how to figure out the answers to these types of problems. So again, more visual, we've got the graphs, the charts, and the tables in there. Now the SAT requires a little bit more deeper comprehension, bringing in a lot more background knowledge, and you're going to see some of the similarities when they changed it over to the ACT itself with an SAT flair. So the SAT is now back to 1600. It was 1600, then it went to 2400, now it's back to 1600. So, and it breaks it down by, it's got your reading, it's got your English and writing, and it's got 2 math sections. So your reading is worth 400 points, your writing is worth 400 points, and then your 2 math sections, 400 and 400 to come up with your 800, and you just add them all together to get your 1600 there. So again, let's see, incorrect answers, no penalty, guess if you don't know an answer, which is very different from the old SAT. You used to have to skip it, there was a quarter-point penalty for wrong answers. The grammar, pretty much the same as the ACT. It tests those grammar English rules, punctuation, comma places, subject versus predicate, things like that. The essay, again, is also optional. The math section, there are 2 sections. So here's where one of your big differences is on the 2 tests. It does go up to Algebra 2 trig. It does have some statistics on there, but very few. There is more emphasis on algebra, multi-step equations, linear equations, things like that. There are grid-in, and it's not all multiple choice. So students do have to solve the problem, multi-step problems, and they have to write out, excuse me, they have to write out the answers and then bubble in their answers. So it's not on multiple choice, there's no suggestions for them for the answers. And then one section is with a calculator and one is without. So students who like to have that crutch, and I've heard different things. Some say, oh, I didn't really need it. Or some say, yes, I just like to have it, but I didn't use it. Some students have accommodations where they will use a calculator. So those will transfer over as well if they have them. Did you want me to talk about accommodations as well? Were you going to talk through that?
We've talked about, we had a meeting last month with the Untitled families generally about accommodations between the two. Okay. So we can maybe circle back at the end if there are follow-up questions from that.
Super. And then the reading, similar in the fact that they're testing your comprehension and your vocabulary, but you really do have to have a lot of background knowledge. So one of the biggies for the SAT is that they threw in a lot of historical-based passages. So where the ACT has science, the SAT has history-based questions and passages. And students really have shown that they have to know a little bit about history to answer some of these questions. Where on the ACT, if they ask you a question, it's going to be somewhere within the passages. On the SAT, it may not be there. So some students, and I have students this year who've come in and said, I love history, and they love taking the SAT section. It was their thing, they loved it, they knew a lot about it, they came in. There's a lot more inference type questions, a lot more problem solving, a lot more background that they do have to bring in. There's a lot of linked questions. Linked questions there might be 4 or 5 questions, and they're all based on your first answer. So if you answer the first one wrong, the next 4 could be wrong as well. Let's see. That's really it with the differences between the reading sections. And then the science section, there is not one. So there are no science questions, and then that's why they sort of brought in that history on the SAT there to kind of make it look similar but be different. These are some types of questions. Feel free to solve them if you like. That are samples of the ACT versus the SAT. So like here, you can see more visual. There's a shape. They can actually look at it, manipulate it some with their head, with their pencil, and they can sort of figure out, the problem based on that. Again, more geometry heavy. And on the SAT, multi-step equations. So these are perfect examples of what math questions will look like on each test. So ACT over here, SAT, no calculator, and then with a calculator, just samples. Kind of gives you an idea of what everything looks like. And then SAT grid-in, meaning that there's no questions, no multiple choice answers. So that's an example of that. And then here's another biggie. With the SAT, there's a lot more word problems. And sometimes they even put formulas inside the word problems that have nothing to do with what they're asking you. And again, wanting students to sort of think about and problem solve and use that critical thinking type reasoning to solve the problems. You can solve it. Do you want me to leave it up for a little while?
I'm getting anxious just looking at that.
Have you guessed yet which test most of our students take?
This is true.
Yeah.
And honestly, not just the majority of our students take the ACT. It's just a more clear-cut type. That being said, I do have students who take the SAT, and we do figure out which test is a better fit. And I know you guys give the PACT, and it has a sample, and we do the same thing. We give our students full ACT, full SAT. We came up with a diagnostic analysis where we plug in all the scores and the answers, and we figure out, all right, how did students do on questions that are only on the SAT and not on the ACT, and vice versa. So we have a whole curriculum team who sits around and does this and figure it all out. So who should consider the SAT? And our curriculum team I'm referencing is a group of people on our curriculum team. We buy every release test, we write our own tests, we pick them apart, we analyze them every time a test is given, and we're constantly updating our curriculum too because we look for patterns, we look for things that are new on the test, things like that. So what we came up with is for the SAT, an academic thrill seeker. I don't know. A very strong student with strong reading skills, deeper level of processing. The SAT is also suitable for high-level students who tend to really overthink questions, who like that sort of problem solving. Right, exactly. We'll move on to the ACT now. And the majority of our students are likely to do better on the ACT. Or any student, not just ours. If a student is capable of maintaining focus, working quickly, he or she would be a fan. Now, working quickly because of the timing piece, but again, with accommodations, I mean, you could have time and a half, double time, multi-day, and a single day. So when you do have those accommodations, but even without accommodations, with strategies, the timing really becomes a non-issue. Students who struggle under time pressure might find the ACT more challenging initially, but again, if you've got accommodations or once you start working through. I do have students who come in and they take a full ACT and a full SAT and they come back to me and say, I don't want to take the ACT, I ran out of time. And I say, do not let that become a factor. Let's look at everything before you ran out of time. How did you do until you ran out of time for those last 10 to 15 questions? You're doing fantastic. So wait, because with strategies, we'll work on that timing piece. And our students take multiple practice tests to get used to taking the test in a proctored setting in our office. So they really become familiar with these tests. How do you know which one? Now you guys, and I wrote it in here, McLean does the PACT and the PSAT and compares those two tests and then take a full-length test. So you're in great hands. Not a lot of schools do this, so this is fantastic that you all have that. So and that's basically how we do it as well. So when should you be? We recommend to prepare for about 4 to 6 months before the first real test. I have juniors who have started in August, September. I have sophomores calling me now, ready to start, and I say, no, have a great summer, come back next year. I do meet with them, I meet with them now, I have consultations, and that way I can set them up with a tutor who I think would be a good fit. I have them take the diagnostics if you all haven't figured it out here, for example. Like I said, a lot of students don't have that opportunity. They've never seen an ACT, they have taken the PSAT obviously at school. They come in. I have students who are coming in now for consultations and starting, juniors. So everybody starts at different times. And parents are coming up, oh my gosh, we're so late, we're behind the 8 ball, what are we gonna do? Oh my God, calm down. It's not, everybody takes it at different times when they're ready. Schedules could be crazy, extracurriculars. It really just depends on the student. But we do recommend.
The actual testing.
Yeah.
The ACTs and the SATs are given what month?
So I have a chart, so there's all different
Okay.
months. So like, for example, the February ACT just happened, there's a March SAT coming up, and then there's an April ACT, there's June, now they've added summer tests, so.
Okay, so you can choose when even to take your
Oh,
test
yeah.
during junior year.
Absolutely.
This is all during junior year.
All during junior year. Yep, and senior year. Some seniors come in at the beginning in the fall. There's September, there's October, there's November, depending on which test you're taking, and they take it. Like I have a junior who's starting now. He won't take until June, maybe even a summer test, and then a fall test, because he wants to get 2 in. So it really just depends. Our recommendation is 4 to 6 months prior to the test date. So we do a lot of research on our students' progress, and we found that over about 4 to 6 months, depending on how they're progressing, some students don't need that long and some need longer. And their progress on their practice tests. So every time we take a practice test, we look at their jump in scores. And that's how we guide instruction. So every time they take a practice test, we use that to create a lesson plan based on that student. So I always tell students like, oh, I'm working with Susie Tutor too, but they're working on this. Well, they're a completely different student, and everybody's different. Everybody learns differently. Everybody's strengths are in different areas. So we recommend about 90-minute sessions a week to cover both verbal and math and science. Some students prefer 2 tutors. Most of my tutors are dualists, meaning they come in and they can do all of the content. All of our tutors have to come in taking the ACT and SAT. Then they come in for an interview, we do mock lessons, and they go through training. So they know the test inside and out with the strategies, but we're always doing professional development, updating them with those current tests and strategies. And some students prefer 2, and so they might do 2 1-hour sessions, maybe with a different tutor, maybe with the same tutor. The majority of our students do 90 minutes a week. We also recommend taking 4 to 6 practice tests. Now these numbers aren't just like we threw them out up here, like 90 minutes, 4 to 6. We actually did. So we looked at all of our students over the years, and look, everybody's different obviously, and everybody has different learning styles and needs, but we found on average the students who prepped about 90 minutes for about 4 to 6 months, taking 4 to 6 practice tests, made the most progress. It just, you know, being able to cover the content, being able to cover the strategies, building your endurance for taking these tests and getting used to it. I say this to students all the time, and they say, oh, I have to come in and take 4. Yes, but then you're done. I mean, that, you know, and then you're working on your college applications and your essays the next, yes, you do have to go through this, but it's really helpful. And I relate it to sports or any sort of extracurricular. If you think about it, you practice every day, which is your tutoring sessions. You take the practice test, which is sort of like your scrimmages, and then your big game is the test. So with anything, you have to practice and come up with and build your endurance. We do recommend taking it 2 or 3 times. Is that okay? So we recommend taking it 2 or 3 times because of score choice and super scoring. Are you all familiar with? So score choice is, let's say you take the test 3 times. You can decide, depending on the schools and if they follow this as well, you can decide not to send certain sets of scores off to colleges. So maybe your first one wasn't as great as your second and your third. You don't have to send that test off. And then super scoring is, let's say for the ACT, you've taken it 3 times, and all 3 sets of scores were pretty darn good. You can take your best English from the 3 tests, your best math, the best reading, your best science, come up with a super score. The computer actually does that when you go through the Common App and you submit your scores. The computer will generate a super score and send it to the colleges that accept super scoring. Some colleges don't. But the majority accept super scoring. So that's why students take it 2 or 3 times. And I also get from students, well, maybe I'll take an SAT and maybe I'll take an ACT, but then you can't super score. So that's, plus you want to focus on one test and learn that test really, really well, and then take them. Any questions on any of them? Okay. All right, I don't know how well you can read this because I just popped this in. Excuse me. So this is a learning differences evaluation. This is an actual student, no name, of ours. And so what we do, because we were talking a little bit about the accommodations piece, what we do is we work with the parents and the school as well, and we'll get like the Ed Psych Eval, 504 Iep Learning Plan from the school, whichever one students have. We take it. I have a learning specialist on staff, and we create a learning plan based on the student's needs and apply it to whichever test they're taking. So we take their diagnosis, their strengths, their areas of concern. These are recommendations. They're either from us and the doctor or or just us, just depending on what we're looking at. So we take, or the IEP or the 504 or the learning plan, we take all of that information, and then we also give recommendations as to what will work best when working with the student on the standardized test prep. So we'll have circle the main character, topic, and important date. So highlight the main idea. So certain things that will go with their accommodations and targeted specifically for each test. And then what we also do is the tutor. So students or parents always say to me, oh, so we'll work with this tutor. Yes, you do work with a tutor, but behind the tutor, you also get a team. So you get me, I help. There's TAB, which is our tutor advisory board, sort of like a mentorship program for the tutors at all times. Tutors do roundtables, and then they have the learning specialist also to kind of support, because sometimes they hit walls with students like, I just can't get through. Like, so we get together, we collaborate, we talk about, all right, well, what can we do to help this student? So this is a big part of our process too. If students have accommodations, they get this learning plan as well. And parents have it, the tutor has it, I have it, and this is what we work on. Now, not all of these may work, and as the tutor's working with the student, they might find something completely different that works the best. So working one-on-one with the student is often the best way to sort of learn their learning needs, their styles, their learning styles, and it's really helpful for us. So I just wanted to bring an example of what one might look like. This is a snapshot of our score report, and this is also an actual student for the ACT. It's a multi-page report. This is just the first page, and this is sort of what it looks like, and this is what we use. It gives us a detailed snapshot of the student's existing strengths and areas of focus. This is what we use to guide instruction. Every time a student takes a practice test, they receive one of these. You get a copy of it, I get a copy of it, the student gets a copy of it. The tutor goes through and creates a lesson plan based on this. And it's always changing, right? Because they're taking and they're progressing, they're taking multiple practice tests, they're progressing with their sessions, they're progressing with their tutoring, excuse me. And so we go through and we look for patterns, okay? So we look for, it's really hard to read, but this is correct answer, omitted answers, and incorrect answers. And we go through and we look for patterns. What do we need to work on? So highlighted here, punctuation is an area of the test that requires knowledge of grammatical rules. We'll want to address grammatical content during the test prep and offer substantial opportunity to practice this information. So we take and we look for where the students scored the best and what we need to work on. So for example, they missed 5. So we take this, and then there's multiple pages, and we actually look for those questions and go over them with the student, and then create a lesson plan and bring extra resources to practice that content area. On the math, we noticed that the student omitted 11 questions. Given that, there was no penalty for wrong answers on the SAT or the ACT. We want to address pacing and ensure the student knows the test policies. And then we also look for, again, kind of hard to read, but it looks like they missed a lot of geometry and on 10 word problems. So we know, okay, we need to go back and work on word problems with this student. So sort of goes through. So this kind of gives us an idea of how the students are doing. And it gives us like baseline data and things. Mm-hmm.
So if they have one, let's say 90-minute session, and you're talking about homework and lesson plan, how much time outside of schoolwork and outside of the tutoring sessions do you recommend on the studying piece of it, or the homework piece of it?
So they get 2 to 3 hours of homework a week. And they can chunk it out. They can do 20 minutes a day if they want. Some students come back to me and say, oh, homework is insane. I can't do 2 to 3 hours a week. Then we adjust it. You know, everybody, again, is different. Everybody has different schedules. It takes some students longer to get through the homework piece. Really just depends. But we recommend 2 to 3 hours. And we leave homework based on what they need to go back. We're always circling back, reviewing, and reviewing the content. All right, I kind of went through this. Will colleges accept either exam? Yes, all colleges accept and view them equally. Should students prep for both exams? I don't recommend it. We went through that a little bit. There are, you know, it's different. The format is different. The strategies are different. So they do overlap a little bit in the content, but everything else is you know. That being said, I do have students who have switched, but for the majority of our students, they stick with one test. How can a student decide which test? We went through that. Diagnostic. You do that here. Let's see. It's our curriculum. So I talked a little bit about our performance prep, our mental preparation. Again, that's sort of integrated within our sessions. We actually just had a workshop for tutors last week. Actually, one of our clients is a yoga instructor, and she came in and did meditation and chair yoga with us. And our tutors will take that and then apply that and work with our students on that as well. It sounds really silly sometimes when I mention this to students, but nobody knows you're doing it. It's actually sitting up tall, pumping your chest forward. It really gets the blood going through your brain and kind of invigorates you. When you're sitting for an hour and a half to 2 hours just taking a section, you know, it's daunting and it's tiring, and I know. I've proctored many practice tests for these students, so I get it. But it really does help. The SAT, Last year, they changed any accommodations that you receive in school, you were automatically given. For on the SAT, the ACT, you do have to register and apply for accommodations. Testing dates, here we go. I have a chart here, so the SAT is given, so this is like the next ones that are coming up in March, May, June, August, October, November, and December. Again, most juniors will come in and take probably December, March, the ACT. They'll take the February. I think I took off a year because it's for next year. April. It really just depends on when they're starting and when they're ready to start and when they're ready to take it. I have students who sign up, for example, let's say they started last month, they signed up for the April test, and it's coming up and they're not ready. They're taking practice tests, they're gonna switch it to June because they're just not ready. And vice versa, you could sign up for June and maybe be ready for April. You could switch it.
Just one comment on that July test date. I think there's some chatter about that may not happen. That's a new test date for
Yes.
this year, and the issue is finding test centers, I believe, because schools
Yeah.
are closed. We're not going to do testing in July in the summer.
Right.
So anyway, that may not happen. I wouldn't count on that test date.
Right, exactly.
Are you open at all for summer testing?
There is no summer testing.
Here.
Well, June.
Here.
June. We do June.
August?
August, yeah, we'll do that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all of the test dates. Any questions on any of that information? It's a lot of information, but we break it down and Hannah goes over everything with you, so you're highly supported. I never expect parents, or even in my consultations, I said, look, we just went through a lot in an hour and a half, and I know you're gonna get in the car and say, oh, I forgot to ask her this, or oh, I forgot this. Then, you're more than welcome to call me and ask me questions at any point. That's what, I do. I'm always, happy to speak to anybody and answer any sort of question, because it's a lot. There is a lot of information, there's a lot to do, and it's a big process, so I totally get it. Yeah?
How normally it's the length of the test? So is it like a morning thing, like a
So I usually start at 8.
if you don't have accommodations?
If you don't have accommodations, so they're about 3.5 hours, 3 hours and 45 minutes, 3 hours and 50 minutes. So depending on the SAT versus the ACT.
Okay.
Yeah, and they usually start at 8.
So a session and a break or something?
Yeah,
or-
you'll get the SAT and ACT both have breaks. It just depends on which test you're taking. But yes, you will get breaks.
Since you're talking to us now, how soon do you, or I'm sure you have a big list or whatnot, if our child is not going to start taking this or start prepping for this until next September, when would be the best time to contact you? Now? The summer?
Anytime. I do have sophomores, parents who are contacting me now. I'm meeting with them. I had 2 sophomore consultations this week, but they won't start until September.
Okay. And do they come to your home, or is it a place you go to?
So for the consultation, the practice test, they come to my office in Bethesda. It's on East West Highway next to BCC High School. For the tutoring, the tutors come to your home.
Oh.
Or places. Some students don't like to meet in the home, they like to go to the library or whatever, but the majority of our students meet
Do you go to Virginia?
with a tutor. Yes,
You don't go to Upper Marlboro, Maryland, I'm sure.
we actually do. I have tutors who live in Baltimore, I have
Okay.
tutors who live in DC, McLean, Alexandria, Arlington, so I have tutors all over, yes.
Where do they practice the test?
In the office,
In the office?
in
Okay.
Bethesda. So it's set up like a mini
Like
classroom, I have
okay.
little desks and chairs.
To replicate the.
To replicate it, we hire proctors that come in to give the test with the, so in one day, I give them every Saturday and Sunday. In one day, we could have a room or multiple rooms filled with students with standard time, students with time and a half, students with multiple days, students who take it by themselves on audio. So we have it all going on within one day. And we have proctors who come in and we give them the tests exactly how they will take the test on the day. And the tutors are also obviously trained on the accommodations piece, and so they work with the students. So let's say they take it time and a half in one day, in one sitting. We help the students manage the time, because maybe your child is stronger in math and science, and so they need to spend more time on the verbal piece. So we kind of work with them. You should be about, spend about this much time so that you have more time for the English and the writing and the reading.
Okay, so question. So suppose, and I just want to make sure I understand this right. If you do like ridiculously well in one section of the ACT and the other ones are not as good, it's not, it's equal, right? And it's averaged out. So there's no benefit. There's no like, yay, awesome, schools look at science section as opposed to the math and English.
So like everything in college admissions, it depends.
Yeah.
So if you have a student who's a super math test taker who wants to go off and do engineering,
Yeah.
that math score is going to, maybe flip that. If you don't have a strong math score and you want to do engineering, you're in trouble. So a strong score in math, those schools are going to look at closely.
So they will look at the section. So if you have someone who wants to think they want to go into medicine and the science section was awesome, but the other two really don't.
Pre-med's different. You got to
Yeah.
be good at everything. But
Okay, well.
but so I mean, I think it's really about how you prepare for the test, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're awesome at math, then the tutor's not going to spend a whole lot of time at math, right? You're going to do like, let's bring everything else up as high as it can go.
But the school's not going to look at one section necessarily.
Depends on the school. It
Okay.
depends on the school. But the idea that everybody's like most students aren't
Yeah.
exactly the same on each section, right? I mean, everybody has a variation, which is why you also have the super scoring to
Right.
come up with the best composite. So it is not unusual to have a student with, a 30 in math and a 25 in English. Like that kind of stuff happens all the time. But what you want to do is you want to shore up and boost as much as you can your weaker areas. And the strategy, I think, is a lot of it. The other thing I just want to say is, one of the things that I like about the way Angela works with students, particularly students who have accommodations, is that the ability to take a practice test under the conditions in which you're going to actually take the test is huge, because you don't necessarily get to do that with all of the sort of general tutoring centers where it's like, well, but your mock is just going to be standard because we know this is the time that we have. Or maybe they can deal with the 50%, but not all of the other combinations of accommodations that we have our students get here. So.
And we have a lot of students. That's why we do that, because a lot of our students have all different kinds of accommodations. So we have large print, we have the audio, we've seen it all.
And you evaluate, like if we don't know if our child should have an accommodation or not. You evaluate that, or?
We do.
And when do you do that?
She would probably do that, but we can
But
do
we
well,
always refer to the
yeah,
college
because
professor.
they can help with that because they know, but we will take care of that before you even get to her.
Right.
So how would we, when would we?
Well, we
discuss
have,
it?
so right now what you have is a PSAT,
Right.
Standard Administration PSAT. And then next fall, you're gonna have a 50 plus 50%, I'm sorry. You have a Standard Administration PSAT and a plus 50% pre-ACT right now.
What is it plus 50%?
They all the extended time.
So
on that-
the ACT results we have right now, the kids.
Because we have
the
school
kids got-
discretion on that.
So the kids got 50% more time than they really would get in the ACT.
Yeah, but most of our students get the extended time, so we do it that way. Some get more than 50%.
Okay, so
Okay,
go
so
ahead.
then you're also going to have a PSAT in the junior year with accommodation. So the idea is we're going to, over the summer, as soon as all of the documentation and all the academic achievement plans, everything's set, over the summer we make sure that everybody in the current sophomore class is approved for the proper accommodations for the October PSAT. So you will have all of your College Board accommodations in place pretty much by the beginning of the school year.
And, so we'll
ACT and but what we're going to do is we'll go then and look and say, well, if you're an ACT potential ACT student, register now, because with the ACT, it doesn't matter when you register. You can register in September for June. It just has to be in that school year. So we can't register now for next year because that's not available, right? But within that cycle, you can register at any time. So what we'll do is have families say, like, just go register. It doesn't matter which test day. You can change it later and pay a small fee for changing. But register so we can get the accommodations approved. And then you can go to Angela and say, all right, here's the accommodations on both. This is what the school's recommending. This is what we have for our pre-testing on both of the tests, and that's, you know, better information for them to work with.
Okay, so this is all something that we will become a partner with you on starting the September of our child's junior year.
Yes, but really over the summer to start bringing in the documentation, because for ACT, we need to have that updated psych ed. For College Board, we just need to say school students using accommodations at school and has a history of a learning difference or anxiety or whatever. ACT, I have to upload a psych ed report into my portal to request, and it has to be within 3 years.
Okay, but you guys are doing all that.
Yeah, we do. We do that with the accommodation with the information you provide to us.
So we
You
have
gotta
to
get
get
the
the
psych ed.
evaluation
So that's
We
what
need-
done.
how should we?
As long as we have to have a psych ed that's within 3 years
Okay.
for the student with a diagnosis and recommendations for accommodations in order to request accommodations in the ACT. That's all.
Okay.
But not
That's
the
the difference.
SAT.
But the SAT, we have to have a history of something, and the student has to use accommodations at school.
So I don't have to go through this fire drill of getting a whole nother,
Well, you do
Based
if you
on the
want
base-
ACT.
well, based on the test
And-
you gave this year, it's not
And,
even close. It's
well,
SAT.
and you do for college. Because colleges will want a report at age 16 or later, 3 years before college.
So I need to do this anyway for college.
Yeah.
See, I'm just blown away by all of what you showed me with SAT versus ACT. You know, I would think my kid would be the typical ACT all the way, but when I looked at the results between the two, there was like, it was not even close. SAT.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me. I'm just blown away. I don't get it.
Do they take the test together? Is it one test? How does it?
They take, yeah.
Or was
yeah,
it
just
different
in one day.
days? Or
And the SAT, they
you
took
did- it was
standard
standard.
administration.
And
yeah.
she didn't even finish the test and did so much better on
The
the
SAT?
SAT than the ACT. The ACT she finished, the SAT she did not finish, and she did much better. Makes no sense to me. Maybe it was like a freak day, I don't know.
You know, it's hard sometimes with sophomores because there's the factor of how motivated are they to sit and take this test at this time, right? I mean, to us, sophomore year, I mean, we're like, okay, it's time, we gotta get ready for college. For them, they're like, that's like 2 years
Right.
away, it's a
It's
lifetime
so
away.
far out, right.
So what we find is with sophomores, sometimes when they come in the junior year, we start talking about testing and colleges, like, yeah, I didn't take it seriously then. So I would not
That's what he
dismiss
said.
the ACT. What you might want to do is do, your mock,
Or do a
right?
full SAT.
Or do a full SAT and see what happens.
Yeah.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah, because that's what my son said. Said I didn't really take it that seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
We hear
So-
that a lot.
Who knows?
You're right.
Yeah.
I also want to just say something to address elevated anxiety, which probably some of you are feeling.
Right.
I'm Kathleen Glenn Sparrow. I have met some of you. I'm new to McLean, but not new to college counseling. Been in it for about 18 years, and I'm also a parent of a sophomore, so Aiden. I'll be going through the process with you all. This has been fantastic, Angela. Thank you
Oh,
for
thank you.
explaining everything. I do want to say, too, if your student ends up not being a good test taker, that's okay. Okay, we're all going to give it a shot, and if it works, terrific. If not, there are hundreds of outstanding schools that do not even consider testing anymore. A whole movement. If you don't believe me, you can go to fairtest.org and check it out. Okay, so if the testing works out, fantastic. If it doesn't, you're going to have us to help you make a good plan.
Can I ask a question on top of that? So, in the sophomore, there are a lot of, people are starting to do really college looking for their kids in 10th grade, at least in the greater 10th grade community, even outside of McLean. So they're starting to get counselors looking at different schools, taking their kids to campuses. That part's actually freaking me out more than this. Is that something that you guys work with us on, or should we really plan on getting some outside help? Because that's completely unappealing.
Yeah. So
And frightening.
you have the two of us here.
Okay.
We have a system in place. We will meet with families every fall, our time is mostly dedicated to seniors. We do, though, with the juniors, we have off-campus education day where we really start to get into the idea of what is college, what's a college fit, who am I, what are college majors, and we sort of launch that at the beginning of the junior year with them. They're young still, sophomores. I mean, they're not really ready, most of them. So we do that with the juniors, then we're working with the seniors in the fall. And as soon as that's done, which is like November anymore, because everybody has early deadlines now, we turn our attention to the juniors. And we have family meetings starting after winter break, where we sit down, and we're finishing them up right now. We sit down and we talk to the family about priorities and goals and what would be the definition of a good college and testing timeline and visits, like all of that. And we then put our heads together and suggest a college list for each family to start to explore. So you will get recommendations of colleges based on student interest, things like, is it a school that offers merit scholarships, financial aid, all of that we'll take into consideration. So we offer that here. I mean, I think educational consultants serve a purpose for public school students who don't get any support really in school.
Okay.
Family, you're free to go, that's fine if you want to use something outside.
Don't.
But I feel like it's an extra expense in this whole process that you do not need to undertake.
Okay. Yeah, that's incredibly helpful, because when they took the PSATs and ACTs, now they're getting stuff in the mail from colleges. I mean,
Right.
they're starting to show interest, but not really, and there's no way to where should I send him? Can we start to send them to you guys to ask questions if they have questions?
Absolutely, yeah, students can come and talk to us anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this summer, if you're traveling on vacation and you're near a college campus, I schedule a tour somewhere. I mean, but to me as a sophomore, what you want to do is let's look at a big school, let's look at a small school, let's look at a mid-sized school, let's look at a school in a city. Because you want to look at types of schools now. It's not about specific colleges as a sophomore.
Oh, okay.
Because they might have an idea the school they want to go to, and then they go visit that school, and they're like, oh, I actually don't like how big it is. I don't like the location of it. I thought I wanted a big rah-rah school, but I don't think I do. So that cuts down your college list tremendously. I have students who, as sophomores, only want to go here. We put all our eggs in that basket. Have you visited yet? No. So it's...
Right. Or they don't want to go away from home, or they do want to go, that changes also.
I want to go to California.
Right.
As far away as possible.
I'm going to play my sport in college too. I'm burnt out.
Right.
I'm not going to play my sport in
Right.
college.
It changes.
It all changes. It all changes, which is fine. They should not be stuck at 16 years old in one place.
No.
Anything else?
Okay. All right.
I just have gratitude. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
So nice.
You made stuff you present very nicely, so thank you.
Thank you. And really, feel free to call if you have any other questions. I know it's a lot of information, but
Yeah.
and I think there's my card over there if you want to grab it.